So, welcome everybody. Um, our email shared with you, Aberjani is an American historian, columnist, novelist, all around talented human being who is best known as the co author of the Encyclopedia of the Harlem Renaissance and is also the author of a book of poetry called The River of Winged Dreams. And I love his quote. I think it's something that we can really turn to in this time of so much upheaval. He says, "Peace is not so much a political mandate as it is a shared state of consciousness that remains elevated and intact only to the degree that those who value it volunteer their existence as living examples of the same." And so he's inviting us to begin right here with our own beings. And of course, the Buddha reminds us too that peace comes from within. Do not seek it without, which is often the direction that we sometimes turn, right? So last week we talked about hope. And we know that in order to fuel our hope, we must really feel the possibility and feel a sense of peace. And our meditation practice is really what helps us to find that clarity and strength to meet life's challenges with courage and balance that we need today. And as Aberjani points out, we need more people to volunteer their existence as those living examples of peace in order to really face and resolve the truly enormous challenges facing our world today. And it's often hard to have faith in humanity with the constant torrent of bad news, our seeming inability to tackle the greatest problems that we face as a people. And it can lead to real despair and anguish, which is not where we want to go because that immobilizes us. So through the practice of our mindfulness, we can cultivate that deep sense of inner peace that's really not dependent on external circumstances. And for many of us, everyday life is a combination of overstimulation by our devices and multitasking. And so having the capacity to tap into this sustained and focused attention that our meditation practice, our actual sitting on the cushion, so to speak, is a much more peaceful way of being than the constant interruptions that life delivers. And so when we regularly cultivate that space through our meditation practice, we develop the balance and the stability of the mind so that we can have a much wider perspective on life. We can ask, we can query the deep questions of life, and we can trust that in that silence we will find the right answer. I can't recall which teacher, it's probably Thich Nhat Hanh because he's so poetic when he talks about these things, but he says, when we ask a question, we have to nourish it like a seed. When we plant a seed, it's nourished with the soil, it's nourished with sunshine, it's nourished with rain. And when we plant a question, and he reminds us that nobody pulls up the seed or the plant to see whether the roots are growing. They leave the plant in the ground. They let it mature. And so with our questions, we also need to have that nourishment for the question, which is our sustained silence, which is our the peace that we find in our meditation practice. And then he says, the right answer pops up for us, just like the seed begins to blossom. And of course, you've heard me speak of the seed metaphor before in so many of our sessions, but just to review for those who have not heard it before, in Buddhist psychology, it is said that we all carry the seeds of potential mind states in the depths of our consciousness. And we all have the 51 or 52 different kinds of seeds. We have some wholesome seeds. We have some seeds that are not so wholesome. And we can take this metaphor further by describing our conscious and our subconscious as store consciousness, which is the unconscious, or sometimes referred to as the basement of the mind, and the conscious, or consciousness, or living room. And so again, there are many kinds of seeds in our store of consciousness or in the basement of our mind. Some wholesome, like mindfulness, like generosity, kindness, and forgiveness, and some unwholesome, like greed, like ignorance, like hatred. And when a seed is watered in the basement, it rises up into the living room. And it manifests as an activated mental state. So it's no longer sleeping, but capable of really impacting our body and our actions and changing our physiology. So suddenly we have a guest in the living room. And depending on which guest it is, it can make our living room pleasant and cozy or very unpleasant and tense. So if the seed of anger is watered, it wakens up from its sleeping state, becomes the mind state or the energy of anger, and we feel the heat, the constriction, and maybe the blood flowing to our extremities, preparing us for that flight or fight stage. And in this state, if we're not aware, we say, we think, and we do things that express our irritation and anger, often to our chagrin later. And it's not to say that we should never get angry, not at all. It's noticing that and then asking the question, what am I going to do with this emotion? What is it telling me? And how do I want to respond to it? And so it's through our mindfulness that we have choice. So always asking the question, what seeds am I watering? And there is no limit to how loving we can be, how compassionate we can be. Each of us as humans has the potential for the whole spectrum of human emotions. And I personally have known many people who have come to practice mindfulness who say, I don't really feel much compassion. And they truly don't. Or they don't have much joy. And once they begin to refocus their energies, they can access that compassion. They can access that joy. They can access gratitude or forgiveness or whatever wholesome quality it is. And so oftentimes it's there, but we're not paying much attention to it. And so again, it's always the question of what are we paying attention to also? So such an important thing to remember, particularly in these days that we're experiencing right now. So once we begin to nourish these wonderful seeds, they often have a snowball effect. They interact, the nourishing seeds interact with each other under the surface of our consciousness. And so all of a sudden we're doing something that really rather surprises us. Oh my gosh, I didn't really realize I could be so generous. But we've been watering those seeds of perhaps gratitude, and generosity and gratitude flow together. So it's only because we've been practicing mindfulness in our lives by meditating or by walking mindfully or whatever it might be, and suddenly another wholesome seed is nourished by the wholesome seed that we have been consciously or intentionally nourishing. There are other wholesome seeds that we nourish. So again, reminding ourselves that each of us has an immeasurable potential to be kind and an immeasurable potential to be compassionate and also to experience joy. And we can experience that mind of balance, that place of dwelling restfully and peacefully in our lives, just as they are. The outside world does not have to change for us to change within. So there's a story about a man who comes upon, this is a story about how we often think, and particularly when we get overwhelmed, which is so easy to do today, we often think, I can only contribute a little, so it's not really, is it really worth anything? But there is a story about a man who comes upon hundreds of starfish washed up on the beach, and he throws one back into the water when another man comes by and notices that, and he tells him, there are too many starfish, you can't save them. What you're doing really is not going to make a difference. the first man picks up another starfish and tosses it into the sea and says, "It matters to that one." And so the story holds true for what we do throughout our day. It matters to that one. When we're kind to another person, when we hold the door open for another person, when we nourish our own peace inside of us, we know that that energy touches other people. And so really having faith that what we do to one, we do to many. And so let's meditate on this. And I'm going to begin with sound. And I guess first of all, we're going to start with our posture. And so finding a posture that's comfortable for you, but something that is upright, that is, or you can lie down too, you can stand. We can choose whatever posture is nourishing to us in this moment. And so if you've been sitting for the day and you would rather stand right now or lie down, that's perfectly appropriate. We just choose a posture where we can be alert, where we can be awake. And so it's a state of wakefulness. And our posture nourishes that and supports that wakefulness. And so if you're sitting, which I'll assume the majority of you are, just feeling your feet connected to the ground. Noticing the frame of your body and the posture that you've taken. We can think about our posture as similar to a frame on a painting. It's the outline of our body. And so what is your posture? And what is going to contribute to your wakefulness? And then beginning to notice the sounds in your environment. We're developing anchors so that if in the meditation practice your mind becomes very busy, or a memory that is uncomfortable for you arises, you can turn to your anchors to remind yourself that you are in this moment right now, not where the memory has taken you or where the wandering mind has taken you. And so we establish our anchors, and the first one we will establish is sound. And so just noticing what you're hearing in your own environment. And I'm going to layer that with the sound of the bell. And so just hearing the sound of the bell and following it until it dissolves and disappears. So as the sound of the bell disappears, being aware of the sounds in your own environment, the rhythm, the pitch, not necessarily paying attention to where the sound is coming from, but just the quality of the sound. You might also notice how the sounds kind of intermingle, how they join together to create a completely different effect. Some of the sounds may be pleasant, others unpleasant. But just seeing if you can simply be the observer of sound. The phenomena of hearing. Our senses are always in the present moment. And so being aware that even our sight we can open our eyes to remind ourselves that this is what I'm seeing in this moment right now. This moment, the present moment. And now shifting to touch. Noticing how your body touches other surfaces. And so if you're sitting, moving awareness all the way down to your feet, to notice how your feet touch the ground or the floor initially, eventually the ground, and then eventually the earth. And so feeling your connection to the earth, the balance and the stability, the groundedness. And then noticing how the chair receives us. Feeling the contact points of the chair, the backs of the legs, the buttocks, and perhaps your back. Noticing how your arms are resting against your body. How they may touch your body. Being aware of where your hands are and what they might be touching. And what is your sense of that touch? Are you touching something warm, something cool, something smooth, something rough? Just being curious. What am I experiencing through my sense of touch? And all the while that we're exploring this, the mind continues to generate thoughts. And we're not trying to sweep the mind clear of thoughts. We're just going to let them go. Thoughts seem to arise out of nowhere, and when we simply notice them, acknowledge them, thinking, they will often disappear back into nothingness. And so as we're in this meditation, simply acknowledging our thoughts, labeling them, thinking, or planning, or remembering, whatever it might be. This is part and parcel of the meditation practice, part and parcel of our awareness. So not disregarding anything, but rather feeling appreciation for it. Isn't this interesting? Thinking. And so now noticing how the air that surrounds you touches your skin. Notice where you feel it most vividly. It could be the coolness of the air or the warmth. And then bringing your attention to the nostrils, where the air is drawn into the body to breathe us. And see if you can focus just on that one point where the air initially touches the nostril, and perhaps it might feel cool on the inhale and a little warmer on the exhale. Just placing awareness in that spot for a moment. And now we're going to take 3 slow diaphragmatic breaths. And so if you like, you can place your hand in your belly. And on the exhale, the next exhale, whenever that comes for you, releasing the breath slowly through the mouth, just like you're blowing at a birthday candle. But you're not blowing it out, you're just lightly blowing on it. Just slowly releasing the air. And as you do so, allowing the belly to come back towards the spine. This pushes the diaphragm upward and pushes the air out of the lungs. And when all of the air has been released, taking a full deep breath through your nose and allowing the belly to swell again as the lungs begin to fill with the nourishing oxygen. And when the lungs are completely filled, very slowly, deliberately releasing the breath through the lips if it's comfortable. Releasing it slowly, slowly, slowly. And as we do this, we tap into the parasympathetic, the rest and digest nervous system, and our body begins to relax. When the breath has been released, the belly has come back towards the spine. Again, we inhale fully and deeply, and the belly rises with the inhale. And then we very consciously release again with the exhale, very slowly, letting the breath go, blowing it out very lightly as the belly comes back towards the spine. And then just resuming a normal breath, whatever that is to you. Breathing through the nose. And seeing if you can keep your attention at this lower part of our breathing cycle. Feeling the belly as it expands and contracts with each breath. When we keep our awareness in this lower, deeper part of our body, we have a greater sense of relaxation typically. We're tapping into slower, deeper breathing. And this signals our nervous system that everything is okay. We can relax. We can release. And as we sit in quiet, you might also notice body sensations. And as you do, bringing curiosity. What is here right now? It could be tension. We can breathe into it, allowing it to release, to relax. Or it could be an itch. And then we can just be curious. What happens if we simply watch the itch? Do we need to scratch it, or does it just dissolve on its own? Just being. Using our breath as an anchor, but allowing our awareness to guide us. What is here right now? Relaxing into the steadiness of our breath. Nourishing the peace that allows us to just be. That state of mind that fosters creativity and deep thinking. Resting here. Knowing this is always available for us. We simply have to very intentionally seat ourselves and just be. No doing, just being. Reassuring ourselves that in this moment, I do enough. In this moment, I have enough. And in this moment, I am enough. And as our meditation comes to a close, setting your intention for self-care this afternoon throughout the rest of the day, coming to these moments of just being, touching in with the breath, touching in with your feet, touching the ground, touching the earth. Just being. It's enough. And now I'll ring the bell to end the meditation and simply allow the sound to come to you. Taking a deeper breath, stretching.